Hello, boys and girls. This is our review for Chapter 7 in Government. And I've got right here in my hand, right here, the test. And I'm going to go over a number of the questions to give you a general idea of what's on there. And if you can answer all these questions, you will do well. What is a bureaucracy? You got to know what a bureaucracy is. And it would be helpful to spell it Bureaucracy. But what is a bureaucracy? And what is the definition? So you need to know that key term. And how does that differ from a federal bureaucracy? What is a federal bureaucracy? And how does it function? Um, what happens when a new president is elected and that bureaucracy? Of course, you remember that um, the executive branch, the bureaucracy falls under the executive branch. So, what happens when they have a new president? Does everybody get thrown out? The few people who decide. So, you want to know that. Um, how do people get jobs with the federal government? What do they have to do? So, um, how are they chosen? Um, yeah, how's that changed over time? Used to they had the spoil system. It went up through Andrew Jackson and some of those folks where a lot of people in the government was replaced, and that created a lot of problems, efficiency and or inefficiency, I should say. And you want to know all about the problems that were created with the spoil system. And then they want to reform the civil service. How did they go about doing that? And what was the impetus? That is, what caused them to want to reform the the civil service? What was kind of the thing that pushed them over the edge to do that? Um, and then executive departments. There were four original executive departments. What were they? You want to know that. And let's see what is true about these large executive departments. They are huge. So, what can you tell me about them? And then you want to know there's the listing of all the 15 executive departments and what they do each one. And then they have smaller agencies within them. And you want to have an idea of some of those agencies anyway, maybe the main ones like I don't know, FBI, Food and Drug Administration. What departments are those in? Um, let's see. How about the leadership of the independent executive agencies? Now, there are three. There are executive departments, that's the big group, and then there are also these independent agencies. And those fall into three categories, you know that. Independent um, a, um, executive agencies, and then you have independent regulatory commissions, and then you have government corporations. You want to know those three areas. And then what is the leadership like in each one of them? How do they get to be leaders? How do you get to be at the head of NASA, for instance? Uh, what is the process they go through there? And what do regulatory commissions do? We've said there are three types of independent agencies, independent regulatory commission being one of them. What do those do? And what must be true of those independent regulatory commissions? And can you give me an example of an independent regulatory commission? And let's see. How about government corporations? What are they? I will tell you right now, the reason we have government corporations is because they lose money. Nobody wants to run the business because they lose money. Postal Service loses money. Amtrak loses money. But they're kind of important, so they're government corporations. But you want to know about government corporations. And then the Freedom of Information Act in 1966. What did it do? You want to know the difference between a progressive tax and a regressive tax and a proportional tax, and be able to give an example of each of those, uh, progressive, regressive, and proportional. And then there are all kinds of taxes to choose from. There's income tax, there's gift tax, there's inheritance tax, there's Social Security tax, all kinds of taxes. So you want to be able to say, is that a progressive, is that a regressive, or maybe a proportional tax? Um, and there are excise taxes, Medicare, all kinds of taxes. Which of the following situation is most likely to lead to a budget deficit? What is a budget deficit? And what would cause a deficit? So you want to deal with that. How do you name a fiscal year? Every year. Right now, what fiscal year? We're in fiscal year 2020. That's right. But we've been in fiscal year 2020 ever since October, November, December of last year. That was also fiscal year 2020, although it was only 2019. Still, we were in fiscal year 2020. So you need to make sure that you know how to calculate what is called a fiscal year. Let's see. Moving right along, we're kind of covering these things. OMB. What is OMB? Better. What is the CBO? Need to be able to tell me what is the OMB, what is the CBO, and what do they do? Both of them deal with money. How are they different? You want to be able to express that. And talking about differences, what's the difference between a budget committee and an appropriations committee? You need to be able, one works before something, one works after something. So you need to be able to tell me what's the difference between those two. And this is another good one. What is the difference between fiscal policy and monetary policy? Now, they both deal with money. They both deal with how much money is out there. Those are the two ways that the government can influence the amount of money that is out there and what that money is being for. Fiscal policy and monetary policy. And you want to understand the difference between fiscal policy and monetary policy. And what organization is associated with each. For instance, I will tell you, fiscal policy, it is the Congress. But with monetary policy, it's the Federal Reserve Bank or Federal Reserve System. Federal Reserve, or you can call it the Fed. They're responsible for the monetary policy. How do they control that monetary policy? And how does Congress, how do they control the fiscal policy? And there are kind of two parts to the fiscal policy. So anyway, those are things that you need to know. And if the Federal Reserve tightened money, what would that do? Now, anyway, those are all things that you want to study up on. And this test is going to be 25 multiple choice questions. And you will have 30 minutes to answer all 25 multiple choice questions. And hopefully you will do well. But I am telling you, give some attention to those 3 sections on the federal bureaucracy at work. You've got to know how the federal bureaucracy is established, how people get their jobs. You've got to know how it's funded, where the money comes from to run the bureaucracy. And, of course, you need to know how to spell bureaucracy. I hope you have a great day. Stay healthy. And this will go online, I think it's from 10 till 2 on Friday is when the test will occur. And we have a Zoom meeting at 10 o'clock Friday morning. So that'd be a good way to kick off this test. You can ask me any questions you like to about the test and then go right from our Zoom conference into taking the test. You've got 30 minutes, anytime between 10 and 2 on Friday. We'll see you at 10 o'clock on Friday. Thank you.